The Business is sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
Hello, I'm Trevor Merriden and welcome to The Business, the show that's essential listening for the West Herts business community. Tonight, it's all about the money. We're gearing up for the new financial year by looking at the recent budget. We'll have Mike Hayes from Kingston Smith on the line to guide us through the maze of proposed measures and reforms in store for business. From the short term of budgets, we then go to the long term of pensions. We'll be talking to another Mike, Michael Gould, a partner at Highwood in Watford, about the new Wild West of pensions reforms. What are the major changes that employers need to be worrying about? If it's important, we'll be covering it here, best for you on The Business, all in the next hour. But I'm delighted to have Vicky Scott alongside me in the studio. Vicky, how has your week been?
Well, it's been quite an interesting week. Very, very busy. Everybody seems to be very busy at the moment. But I heard a really interesting story. The future of the world economy, evidently, lies increasingly in female hands. This was the paradigm behind the coining of the phrase womenomics by Goldman Sachs executive Cathy Matsui in 1999. But never was this statement, never has it been more true than earlier this month on International Women's Day. Evidently, digital technology has revolutionised the way in which women can participate both economically and socially. And I have to say, I know that myself. But it's all about the flexibility of technology enabling everybody to balance the requirements of their jobs with the demands of being a wife and a mother. Know all about that. It's also intrinsic to being able to maintain a senior position in business, whilst also having the family, etc.
Yeah.
The other thing is that women are incredibly powerful consumers. The science of shopping. And there's no doubt about the fact that women are not a homogenous mass who all act and think the same. And we understand that whole retail arena far, far better than men, because we like shopping. And I know, Trevor, you don't, for one. The other thing is that technology enables female women to mobilise on a big scale, because women are phenomenal communicators. So technology enables women to spread messages on a global scale, and lots of female influencers can literally change the laws of the land. So I know there's a long way to go, but womenomics, it's a really difficult word to say, is definitely here to stay. I just wonder when we'll have our first female Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Well, it could be very soon. I mean, nobody quite knows. One thing that occurred to me about this story is that women are clearly flourishing in terms of womenomics. I said it very slowly just to try and get it right. But are they operating within a world dominated by male values still? I mean, are they sort of working inside a system that's not constructed by them? Or are the changes you mentioned, the technology ones in particular, actually changing the system itself to allow women to flourish on their own terms?
Oh, very interesting question. I suspect it's a combination of the two, really. I don't doubt that the world of work is changing, and women are changing it, and it's changing as well. So I think it's quite. I don't know. It's a very interesting question. Let's watch this space, I suspect, is the thing to say.
OK. I've got a story here. The latest inflation figures for February were a landmark because they were a big fat 0.0%, the lowest since records were properly kept. Interest rates look set to be lower for longer than ever before, and the official Bank of England interest rate of 0.5% could even fall. So why has inflation vanished? The reasons were food and drink, furniture and household goods. The zero rate, if it persists for a few months, is good news for most of us because it increases our spending power and our pounds go further. In other words, we feel and are a bit richer. But if stagnation in prices were to go on for longer, or if it were to turn into falling prices, we could all be in trouble. The point is that we thought that prices of things if we thought that the price of things we don't actually have to buy was on a downward path, we might actually defer purchases of those things, and that would actually be a bad thing because it would depress economic activity. And when we look at continental Europe, we're seeing just that, the evidence of this is happening. So I suppose my question in my mind is, are we going to enjoy a nice steady as she goes sort of level prices, or are we going to get sucked down the plug hole of EU deflation? I mean, I don't know. I mean, am I being too gloomy?
Oh, definitely. We always like to be upbeat on the show, so let's just assume that we're not going to get sucked down into a quagmire of nastiness.
Right, OK. Now, if you have any views on this, we'd love to hear from you. So our studio number is, of course, 01727 839 926. That's 01727 839 926. Our Twitter is at RVTheBusiness. Email thebusiness@radioverulam.com, and of course you can pick up our shows, all of the shows including this one, on our YouTube channel. Just go onto YouTube, type in The Business and Radio Verulam, and you'll get to it. Right, we're going to head off now, but we'll be back after this short break.
The Business, sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
Radio Verulam Community Partners.
Trestle Art Space is a community art space and registered charity situated in Russet Drive in Highfield Park. Home to Trestle Theatre Company and world-renowned Trestle Masks. We offer a wide range of arts-based activities as well as professional theatre shows, monthly live music showcases with licensed bar and a gallery cafe with exhibitions from local artists. Our 100-year-old converted chapel is also available to hire for weddings, private parties and business meetings. To find out more, please visit our website at trestle.org.uk, and please support us in bringing affordable arts to our community.
For more on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners.
I'm Alistair, the owner of Hawke & Chadwick Estate Agents. We're property experts who manage one of the most valuable assets you'll ever own, your home. We work locally with people in St Albans, Harpenden and the surrounding areas to provide a service where your needs come first. Our service goes above and beyond our competitors. We've received 100% client satisfaction ratings in 2014, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you to help you with any property queries you may have. Visit hawkeandchadwick.co.uk to find out more. Exceptional service is not just for a select few.
If you want to get in touch with The Business on Radio Verulam, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.
Well, welcome back to the business. I'm Trevor Merriden, and I'm with Vicky Scott. And now it's to the budget. Earlier this week, Vicky and I went to an excellent Kingston Smith seminar on the recent budget. And I hope on the line we've got our guest Mike Hayes from Kingston Smith. Basically, what happened at this Kingston Smith budget seminar was that we spoke to a number of people, including Mike Hayes from Kingston Smith, and we heard all about what was going to happen in the budget. And then later on in the show, we'll hear more about pensions reform. I think what we're going to do is we're going to just hear from Kevin Jones and see what he had to say.
Could have done, but we're obviously only 6 weeks away from the general election. I thought it was interesting that they released a lot more information than normal prior to the announcement on the day. But I think overall, from a business perspective, hopefully it gave people in the business market confidence that they can proceed with their plans rather than holding fire all the time to wait and see what happens. So I think overall it was as good as to be expected, really.
I mean, we won't get into the politics of the whole thing with an election coming so close, but just generally speaking, do you think politicians as a rule are really attuned to the needs of small businesses these days?
I think there's a lot of lip service. Part of my activities prior up until about 2 years ago, I was also chairman of the regulatory body for commercials in the UK, so had a lot of face-to-face meetings with MPs. So I think there's a lot of lip service, whether there's a great deal of understanding. You see about a big press towards making banks lend to the SME market. I think that's probably stories there for another day, but I don't think they really do grasp it, and I don't really think that they push it enough. It's an important sector. If that sector's moving forward, then the UK is moving forward, because it is a real big sector these days.
I mean, I suppose one final question would be that, we often get the cliche, the one thing that businesses hate is uncertainty. I mean, I suppose, whatever your politics, and, is that this is quite a tricky period for businesses, because you don't know quite what's coming out of the other end. All the stuff that we've talked about in the budget in the last few days may come to naught.
Well, as I said just now, it's the confidence factor, and I think there was nothing there that would have alarmed people. You still have people that will hold back because of that. Will it actually be delivered? I think what the UK needs, whatever the political bent is, but at the end of the day, I think we need stability. We need to carry on with what we're doing at the moment. We're in a very good place, and we could be in an even better place. So let's hope it's the right decisions are made in 6 weeks' time.
Hello, welcome back to the business. That was Kevin Jones, from CEO of Amiga Commercial Solutions, and Kevin offered, as we know, offered a broad mix of financial services, and I think there was some very interesting stuff that he was saying there about his business. I did wonder a bit about where he said, "Let's hope the right decisions are made in 6 weeks' time." Well, of course, we're not allowed to comment under the rules of broadcasting on what Kevin Jones means, but the right decisions, in terms of the right decisions around an election. But as we'll see, the election is clearly on people's minds. Those words about certainty are certainly in people's minds. I'm wondering actually whether we can go to the second clip actually from let's hear from Yolanda. And just see what she has to say.
You talk to businesses of all sorts of sizes every day. What are the big key issues that are coming up?
Hello, Victoria. Really, I think what we're finding is that businesses are welcoming some reform with regards to business rates. We know for a lot of small businesses, particularly in our high streets, they are struggling with business rates and the cost of premises. We know there's some consultation, there's going to be some reform, but we want to make sure that they don't scrap the sort of business rates relief, because obviously that's really important, and we think local authorities should be able to certainly support small businesses when they most need it.
Which do you think are the key issues actually going forward beyond business rates? Business rates have been going on and on and on, and there just doesn't seem to have been enough done. There's lots of promises made. But what about other issues like funding and things like that? Those always seem to crop up. Are there any things that you're hearing out on the street with your small businesses regarding funding and lack of funding?
I think in Hertfordshire we never do as well as other parts of the UK in the past, and I think what we've got to do is make sure, with the support of our LEP, that we really do get the bang for our bucks and government starts to back winners. We know we've got fantastic organisations here in the county, and what we've got to make sure is that we shout louder, and there's more funding that supports businesses in R&D, as we've heard today in the budget. But we've got to make sure that businesses get the support they need for infrastructure, so we can keep our county moving. So, for instance, some of the big hitters to do with getting widening of the A1M. For a lot of businesses, it's a bit like a lottery trying to get your workforce into the work because of the congestion around our county. So we've got to make sure we get the infrastructure support and investment. That's really critical. The other area which I'm pleased to see in the budget is recognising the support for taking on youth employment. It's a big area for us. We've got to make sure that businesses are supporting young people in that transition into work, and they get some support, because we know once they get into work they need training and they need to be developed, and that's a burden for a business as well to take a young person on. So support with reducing and abolishing the national insurance contributions for under 21-year-olds and 26-year-olds from 2016 is important to us.
And just finally, we do quite often hear about incentives and tax incentives, etc., for the sort of medium-sized businesses. What do you think is being done for the sort of very small businesses, the micro businesses, the sole traders? Is there much going on that's really going to be helping them in this budget, or being talked about from the different parties?
Well, we've got the entrepreneurs relief, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens post the election, to see what more can be done. I think there's always plenty more that can be done, but I think at the moment we're just waiting to see what can happen, really.
So that was Yolanda. We've heard so far from Kevin Jones, CEO of Amiga Commercial Solutions, and Yolanda Rugg, Chief Executive Officer at the Hertfordshire Chamber of Commerce. Now, I hope that we've got on our line Mike Hayes from Kingston Smith. Mike, are you there?
I'm hearing you fine.
Okay, all's well that ends well. So, Mike, just take us through what the Chancellor started talking about, particularly with regard to the businessy type things. And I think maybe what if we start at things like NICs, national insurance contributions, and capital gains. What can you tell us about what the Chancellor said there?
Well, one of the things that the Chancellor has done is targeted some national insurance savings for, firstly, for employees who are under the age of 21, where there's no employer's national insurance, up to the upper earnings limit, which is £815 per week, and that starts from this April. And from next April, he's proposing no employer's national insurance on a similar basis for all apprentices under the age of 26. So that would certainly cut down the cost for business of taking on, from this year, younger workers, and from next year, apprentices up to a slightly older age.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you think of those changes? I mean, how are they? I think what we'll hear a lot in some of the clips that are coming up is stuff around how much of these things will actually go through. Are these kind of technical type changes, or are they politically contentious changes, do you think?
Well, I don't. Well, then I think they're neither. I mean, I think there are genuine benefits. I mean, it's for good reason that national insurance is referred to as the jobs tax, and employers' national insurance contributions basically adds 13.8% to the wages you're paying somebody. So, if up to £815 per week you can get away with paying without paying any national insurance for younger employees up to the age of 21, and from next year for apprentices, then that's going to make it more likely. But I presume that you're going to recruit people like that.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, we're trying to stay away a bit from the politics. We're going to be coming to it a little bit because of obviously the election restrictions on what we can say. But I mean, have you got a sort of sense of, you know, how this would have compared? I mean, in terms of, you know, the Labour Party and what they would have introduced. Are we talking about the two shades of grey, so to speak? If you excuse that. Sorry,
no, I understand. I mean. Yeah. I can't say that a Labour government or any other colour of government would have done the same thing. On the other hand, you know, they both espouse the wish to get more younger people into work, and this is a very solid measure. So I don't necessarily see it as being political, and I don't necessarily see it being reversed should there be a change in government.
Right, okay. Why don't we move on now a little bit to corporation business tax rates and so on. And a lot of our listeners, Mike, are of course sort of smaller businesses. We have a very thriving, vibrant sort of micro and sort of mini business sector. How do all these changes start to affect them, do you think?
Well, there's a variety of changes. I mean, the good thing looking forward is that if you operate your business through a limited company, from next week we're going to have a single rate of corporation tax of 20%, which will make us, you know, one of the lowest corporate tax rates within the you know, the G8 economies, G20 economies, I believe, as well. So that's attractive if you operate as a company, although one political party has says it will increase corporation tax for larger companies if they get into power. So, but that clearly wouldn't affect micro businesses. I think there's a variety of things that affect micro businesses. If you're into research and development, the availability of tax credits. If you want to raise capital, there's some of the tax incentives like the Enterprise Investment Scheme, which will help encourage business angels to invest in your business. So there's a variety of things, but that can actually help you, and it's a question of actually seeing what's available that will help your business in its circumstances.
Can we break down a few of those terms, perhaps? Really, I mean, you've talked about sort of enterprise investment scheme and so on. I mean, there's a sort of alphabet soup really out there, isn't there? I mean, could you sort of lead us gently by the hand on one or two of those, and actually sort of take us through what each of them mean and what sort of areas they cover?
Well, I'll deal with enterprise investment scheme because that's been around for quite a number of years now, and under various different governments. I mean, broadly, this is a scheme that actually gives tax relief to those who are willing to invest in the share capital of your company. So if you're a growing company or a new company, you need to raise capital. Particularly now when bank borrowing is still quite difficult to obtain, then this can be very attractive because you can actually find some sort of entrepreneur or business angel who would be willing to invest 10, 20, 30,000, maybe more into your business, and they get income tax relief on their investment of 30%, which obviously makes it attractive for them. But what is more, subject to meeting all the technicalities, when they sell their shares in your business, they don't pay any capital gains tax on the gain they hopefully make. So it can be a very attractive way for somebody to invest in your business, and it does encourage people to invest in riskier businesses.
Right, okay. That's great for the moment, Mike. What we're going to do is take a short break, and then we'll be back, and we're going to play a few clips. Obviously, you gave this excellent seminar on Monday, and we're going to play a few clips about people and what they're sort of what was in it in terms of them, in terms of what they picked up from you from the seminar, and we'll get to the side of things where obviously people are talking about the election, what's coming up, and what sort of impact that might have. So we're going to have a quick break now.
The Business, sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
Mum wanted me to take chlorine tablets on my travels. There's no need, I told her. Have my fantastic Water2Go filter bottle that eliminates over 99.9% of all microbiological contaminants. I pointed her to the website, water2go.eu, so she could see for herself. Safe, clean water wherever I go. Thanks to Water2Go.
If you want to get in touch with the business on Radio Verulam, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.
Hello and welcome back to The Business. We've got the pleasure of company from Mike Hayes from Kingston Smith, and Mike, we're going to play some clips now. The first of these is from Nicholas Turner from local solicitors Debenhams Otway, and here is what he said. And I'll come back to you for comment in a minute.
Well, we're about 100 employees, so we come in as a small business setup. We count as a partnership in tax terms, but what's really interesting to me is more from the client focus, and we're very client focused at what we do, and to hear the mix of the business property plans, the entrepreneurs' reliefs, and how the individual sort of tax sort of fits into that, inheritance tax, capital gains tax, and so on, because behind every business there are individuals. So it all dovetails very well. To me, one of the main problems now is the election coming up, and whether or not, how much the current finance bill will go through into the Finance Act, and whether or not, or how many actual budgets there are likely to be in this current year, because it's quite possible that there may be a hung parliament or no overmajority, possibly therefore another election in the year. So there could be 2 or 3 different budgets, 2 or 3 different governments in the course of the next year. So it's all very uncertain. I think what we'll go through is what's necessary to keep the country running, basically, till there's a more definite outcome.
Now, our presenter might sort of be saying that probably not a lot of the budget will get through before the election. However, he seemed to indicate that maybe with some obvious sort of maybe ideological slight shifts in emphasis, that maybe a lot of the things would would go through in time, that the broad direction, if not the numbers, might go through. Would you say that's too optimistic, perhaps?
I think a number of the suggestions are quite technical, and that therefore they're more likely to go through as uncontested. But I think there is a widening political divide between, well, the two main parties, and a lot of minority parties now chipping in with considerable influence, actually, in the election result, and they could easily hold the balance of power, like the Liberal Democrats have in the current government, as like a sort of mediating influence on a larger party. It could easily be the case again. Whether there's an appetite for a coalition, I'm not quite sure, but I think there is more clear water between the two main parties probably now, certainly in terms of fiscal matters, than there has been for many years past.
That was Nicholas Turner from Debenhams Ottaway, and I'm also here with Mike Hayes from Kingston Smith. Interesting what he said, wasn't it, Mike?
Yes, it was. I mean, one of the things I can comment on what he said was about how much the finance bill and the budget changes would get through Parliament. I can tell you that most of it did, actually. There are a few things in the draft bill that didn't make it, but on Thursday we had a Finance Act that went through Parliament with most of the budget changes in it. So it's amazing what Parliament can do when in a short space of time when they put their minds to it.
So when all the emphasis or all the publicity was on issues about whether to run a secret ballot for Speaker Bercow in the next Parliament, which of course we won't sort of comment on, actually there was some very good work being done in Parliament that day.
That's right, and much of it didn't have any debate, but it was done by agreement between the parties, and no doubt they, a lot of it went through on the nod, so to speak.
Right. Was any of it? Did any of it not go through? I mean, what didn't go through?
Well, there were some changes to the enterprise investment scheme which didn't go through, and it's not entirely clear why. And there's one or two changes on PAYE and particularly benefits in kind that didn't go through. And again, there's been no comment as to why, but presumably opposition parties did not agree with those changes and said, well, we don't want to approve them until after the election.
Right, and I suppose it's better to get sort of 7 out of 10 things through and just wait for the other side than for the other 3 out of 10, and depending on what particular colour they end up being.
Sure.
We're just going to hear from another person who attended your seminar, Paula Cohen from Paula Cohen Independent Financial Services.
I think it's great for savers and people who want to build a business and look to grow it and maybe eventually sell it on and retire. Yeah. So I think it's all good news.
Okay, no concerns on the horizon, or? I
think the only concerns are what's going to come through with fruition after the election, and what we've seen may change.
Right. Okay. How would it, if you don't mind me asking, in terms of your own business? I mean, is it yourself, or do you work with associates? I mean, what sort of impact would this budget have on you specifically?
Not necessarily a big impact, because everything we do has got a long-term view, and so even changes in government and tax rates, we've got a plan in place, and we follow that plan no matter what happens.
Right. And do you come to many of these seminars at all? I mean, do you find this a good way of getting information and for yourself and also for your clients, I suppose?
Definitely. I mean, the more places that we can go, the more input. Also, you always get a different view on what you already had in your mind, and it's good to listen to other people's views.
That was Paula Cohen from Paula Cohen Independent Financial Services. Mike, so whereas Nicholas was focusing on the customer, Paula was focusing on the saver.
That's right, and there have been some interesting things for savers. There's some sort of more relief for the individual savings accounts, and obviously there's been quite a lot of changes on the pensions, which have been very well publicised and talked about. Still, the biggest issue for savers, I think, is you referred to earlier on, is the low interest rates, and that is a big sort of penalty for savers at the moment. That saving cash does not earn you a lot of money at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to take another break, and we're going to come back with a final clip from one of your interested observers on Monday night, and then do a final roundup, maybe picking out a few highlights perhaps from parts of the budget that might not directly affect business, but of course all business people are individuals as well. So you know we're all humans. so it'd be good to just maybe if you could pick out a few things for us after the break.
Business sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
At Kingston Smith, our ethos is simple. We want our clients to succeed. Welcoming owner-managed businesses and individuals, we pride ourselves on offering the local business community a range of services that best supports their needs for maximum growth. Kingston Smith, helping our clients succeed. Find us on St Peter Street in the heart of St Albans, or for more information, head to kingstonsmith.co.uk.
Radio Verulam Community Partners.
If you enjoy singing and are looking for an uplifting musical experience, the St Albans Choral Society guarantees a friendly welcome to new members. The choir numbers around 80, rehearses on Thursday evenings in central St Albans and performs at various local venues including St Albans Abbey. If you have a reasonable voice and like a musical challenge, go along and join them. For further details, see their website, choralsociety.com, or call the membership secretary on 01727 831 838.
For more on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners. If you want to get in touch with the business on Radio Verulam, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.
Welcome back to The Business. We're at 32 minutes past the hour, and tonight it's all about the money, and we're talking to Mike Hayes from Kingston Smith, who's helping us get through the maze of proposed measures and reforms in store for business. Later on in the show we'll be talking to another Michael Gould, a partner at Highwood in Watford, about the what I euphemistically called the Wild West of pensions reform. Perhaps I'm being a bit unkind there, but Mike, we're going to just play one more clip from Sarah Cook, who also attended the seminar that you gave on Monday night, and asked her whether there was anything that concerned her around the budget.
No, I don't think we have, but it's just interesting to try and get a bit of an insight in terms of what the budget might mean, and you'll see hear a lot about it on the radio, and read about it in the press, just to pick up any sort of insights from Kingston Smith in terms of what else we might be thinking about. One of the things, though, that was interesting in a way, not so much what was in the budget, but the timetable with the finance bill, and then the reality that it's unlikely that any changes of any significance are going to happen, certainly not this side of the election, but they would probably end up being, I think what he was saying was that we would see some of the sort of technical changes, but perhaps not until later in the year.
And if you were to ask one thing from a new government, you're grimacing madly here, but if there was one thing, if you could wave that magic wand, what would it be that they could do, whichever government came in?
Anything that helps continue stability and certainty, because it's within that environment that businesses then have the courage to expand, and the possibility, therefore, that they feel secure enough to take on new employees. And so I think it's those kind of issues that matter.
So that was Sarah Cook. Mike, of course, we've sort of assuaged some of Sarah's concerns already with your sort of calming words about the good work of Parliament in the finance bill on Friday. But in terms of her wish, are you able to pick up a magic wand and give her the wish that Sarah wanted?
In terms of consistency and stability in the tax regime?
Yes. Are the greasy wheels of finance going to keep turning? Are we going to have that consistency and stability? Is all well, do you think?
The answer is I don't really know, because with the general election there's going to be uncertainty, and what we don't know is what some of the opposition parties are actually going to offer us after an election, assuming they're victorious. So we know that a Labour government will put up the top rate of income tax from 45% to 50%, but they've been conspicuously quiet on other changes. Typically, governments do change taxes quite a lot. I mean, even this Finance Act that rushed through Parliament was 350 pages long, and they did that in a couple of days. So the chances of us having a stable regime, I think, are not great. But on the other hand, what I would say is that some of the reliefs that are around for investing in research and development, for investing in companies under EIS, things like film tax credit relief, those have actually survived governments of different colours, and they've been changed and enhanced and etc. So, some of those reliefs will probably, survive intact, and the incentives for people to invest, whether it be in capital expenditure or in R&D or other things, will probably survive.
Okay, could you actually just tell us a little bit more about that? You just talked about the creative sectors as well, and entrepreneurs relief. Maybe we could just sort of finish off by talking a bit more about that, and maybe some other highlights of which might not be directly related to business, but maybe helpful for business people as individuals to know about.
Right. I mean, there are whole ranges of incentives to invest in particular things. I mean, firstly, capital allowances. If you're investing in plant and machinery, whether it be machinery that goes in your workshop or it is computer equipment, at the moment, for the remainder of this year, you can write off up to £500,000 per annum against tax in year one, which is very attractive. That's due to go back down to 25,000 at the end of December, and the Chancellor said that if given the chance by the electorate, he would like to keep that upper limit at a higher level than £25,000, which would be good. Investing in research and development, if you invest in qualifying R&D, and Hertfordshire has a good reputation of investing in research and development with its long-standing connections to pharmaceuticals and the like. That relief was enhanced. Now, if you spend £1,000 on qualifying R&D, you now get a corporation tax deduction of £2,300, a slight increase announced in the budget. But there are reliefs for other creative sectors. The film industry, that was increased during the budget. A new relief for children's TV programmes, enhanced reliefs for high-end TV and animation. Some of those do affect the county, given the presence of film studios and similar. So there are lots of reliefs out there for particularly sort of innovative businesses and high-tech businesses, which, if you're in those sectors, you can see if you can take advantage of them.
Right. Can I just ask you a question, actually, just a more general question about, we talk about business loving certainty, and, certainty and simplicity are often sort of put together. On the other hand, that sometimes tax and spending initiatives by their nature have to be sort of quite complicated. I mean, are they the same things? If businesses crave certainty, are they also craving simplicity? Because simplicity can also create contradictions as well.
Yes, I mean the tax system is not simple, and it keeps getting worse. When I started out in tax, the legislation was 2 volumes, and now it's 6 or 7. So tax is not simple because every time someone makes a change in tax, the tax authorities are worried about people driving a coach and horses through it, so you have lots of anti-avoidance. But also then you need to make it fair, because then that involves lots of additional words in the legislation to make it fair between people. So there's a lot that could be done on simplification, which would actually make it better for, the tax authorities, for taxpayers, and also for us advisors, who sometimes end up scratching our heads at the end of the day.
Right. Okay. And in terms of final question for you, in terms of this particular budget, in your years of sort of analysing these things, was this a particularly complicated budget, or was it a relatively simple one to sort of get your head around?
It was relatively simple. I mean, there was quite a lot of sort of technical changes and quite a lot of quite difficult stuff on things like anti-avoidance, which we've not talked about tonight. You know, as budgets go, it wasn't too bad. I think it was quite a political budget with certainly the Chancellor had his eye on potential voters in some of the things that were announced either the other week or back in December in the autumn statement. But you know, that's politics. I suspect we're going to get that whatever happens. Yeah. It was not too bad from that point of view. I think reasonable budget.
Okay, and is this? You're giving me good, interesting answers, which always leads me on to another question. I promise this one really will be the last question. Okay. But in terms of the tax avoidance thing that you said we hadn't sort of touched on, I mean, are we being seduced by media headlines about sort of tax avoidance? Is it a particularly bad problem? Is it getting worse?
Well, I think it's getting a lot better, and a lot of the things you hear about in the press are quite a number of years old. You know, the thing about what might have happened in a Swiss subsidiary of a well-known bank, for example, all that information, all that was happening, you know, 8, 9, 10 years ago, and a lot has changed in terms of anti-avoidance tax legislation introduced by both the last government and this government, which actually have cut down a great deal on some of the sort of more outrageous things that one or two people used to do from a tax point of view. But so I think the regime has got much tighter, and I think some of the stories we hear about are very much historical, and I would imagine that sort of tax avoidance and tax evasion is on the decline.
Okay, that's great, Mike. That's been absolutely brilliant, and thank you for your time this evening. That's Mike Hayes from Kingston Smith. Thank you very much.
Business, sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.
At Kingston Smith, our ethos is simple. We want our clients to succeed. Welcoming owner-managed businesses and individuals, we pride ourselves on offering the local business community a range of services that best supports their needs for maximum growth. Kingston Smith, helping our clients succeed. Find us on St Peter Street in the heart of St Albans, or for more information, head to kingstonsmith.co.uk.
Radio Verulam Community Partners.
If you enjoy singing and are looking for an uplifting musical experience, the St Albans Choral Society guarantees a friendly welcome to new members. The choir numbers around 80, rehearses on Thursday evenings in central St Albans and performs at various local venues including St Albans Abbey. If you have a reasonable voice and like a musical challenge, go along and join them. For further details, see their website, choralsociety.com, or call the membership secretary on 01727 831 838.
For more on Radio Verulam Community Partners, go to radioverulam.com/community partners.
If you want to get in touch with the business on Radio Verulam, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.
Welcome back to The Business. I'm Trevor Merriden with the show that's essential listening for the West Herts business community. Tonight it's all about the money, and we've been gearing up by looking at the new financial year. We've had fantastic expert comment from Mike Hayes from Kingston Smith, who's kind of guided us through the alphabet soup and the maze of measures and reforms in store for business. We've talked about things like national insurance contributions, capital gains tax, corporation business tax, effective tax rate, investment allowances. I mean, it's an absolute alphabet soup of initiatives and things to get your head around. EIS, investment in social enterprise. So I just keep going on. R&D, tax credits, treatment of creative centre entrepreneurs, relief. So much to talk about, and I hope that's been helpful in helping you understand what happened to the budget. And it is, despite the worries of people at our seminar in terms of the politics, it seems as though most of that stuff has actually got through. So the wheels of finance will keep on turning. Now, from the short term of the budget, we're going to be moving to the long term of pensions. And I'm just going to bring in Vicky Scott here on this. I mean, how are your pension affairs like everybody else's? Without getting personal about this, are they messy as mine? Or?
Well, no, actually, I hate to feel smug here, but when I decided to sort of move out of the corporate world and move into running my own business, I really had a massive organisation and clear out and sort out and consolidation and all of that sort of stuff. And I have to say I couldn't do it myself because I'd just got piles and piles of papers and didn't really know what they all meant. So I went to a sort of wealth manager chap who's absolutely wonderful. If you're listening, Roger Davis of Avidity Finance, he really helped me sort it all out. And I'm sorry to be a bit smug, but it's all in quite good shape, actually.
So you retire next week?
Well, you know, not quite.
I mean,
I know a lot of people who aren't quite so organised.
I think I've got a sort of potpourri of sort of various pensions that are around. I'm not quite sure what to do with them, to be honest, but what I do like is that the change is afoot, and that I know that if I, as I said to my wife the other day, that if I muck it up, I want to muck it up on my own terms. I didn't actually use that word. I used a very similar word to that. But who better to help us on this than Michael Gould from Highwood? I recently spoke to Michael about the pension changes afoot, and it's worth pointing out that these changes are those which affect those mainly outside defined benefit schemes, although, of course, defined benefit schemes are far fewer in number, and it's worth making that sort of caveat. And so for most people not on defined benefits, this is a period of great excitement that people are starting to take more interest in their pensions. So what's the big deal? I asked Michael.
If you're either 55 or above now, or going to be 55 in the coming year, you're going to be able to access your pension funds in a way that you've never been able to before. So historically, what you would see is that you would have your pension fund, and when you reached your retirement age, you would have the option of buying an annuity, or you would have the ability to go into what's called pension drawdown, where you would leave your pension fund invested and draw an income from the fund. But you were always limited in the amount that you could take out, and many people felt disgruntled at pensions generally because they were worried that they'd save for a lifetime but never be able to value or receive the true value of their pension fund. Under these new rules, anyone over the age of 55 will be able to access their pension fund in its entirety without restriction. However, what you must remember is that the first 25% is available as tax-free cash, and the remaining 75% will be treated as taxable income in the hands of the recipient.
Okay, right. I mean, just one quick question there is that the media, such as they are, sort of talk about. There's going to be a sort of bonanza of reckless spending by people dipping into their pension pots. But you've put a caveat in there about the 25-75 rule and so on. Do you think that will materialise, or is that all just media talk?
Well, it's very interesting because with all the clients that we've been speaking to over the last few months, we haven't had one client who's turned around and asked whether they could access a pension fund to use it to spend on a holiday or to splurge on a Lamborghini, as the president wants to say. People who are sensible, who've saved money through their lifetime with the purpose of using this money to support them in their retirement, are unlikely to put themselves in a position where they are financially dependent on the state by blowing the money at an early time. What we are seeing, however, is that clients are thinking about the flexibility that this access will give them, and it enables them to have different investment options or different ideas. So they might choose to buy, to put the money towards a holiday home. They might use the money to repay a mortgage. They might use it to clear off credit card debt or to help their children. But I'm not generally hearing any comment from people that they are intending to blow the money. I think that's more of a press headline than it is a reality.
So, Michael, I understand there's some quite significant changes around inheritance tax as well.
Yes, I mean, historically, what would happen is people would be concerned that their pension would die with them, or if it went to their spouse, after the death of the spouse, then there would be a recovery charge of 55% on the residual fund before it went to any family. So that's quite a heavy tax to suffer. And what we're seeing with the changes to the legislation that comes in April is the ability to pass on the pension fund to family members free of inheritance tax. So this onerous 55% recovery charge will disappear. And that's a wonderful thing, because it now means that people are able to save into their pension funds, get tax relief on the way in, receive tax-free growth during the lifetime of the pension fund, and then after their death, whatever is in their residual fund could pass on tax-free, i.e. no inheritance tax, to their nominated beneficiary. And it doesn't need to be a spouse, it could be a child or a grandchild. So it creates a wonderful legacy for families to pass on. And if you think about it, if someone had a pension fund of £100,000, then everyone has a nil rate band that they're able to pass on £325,000, and what they're actually doing is passing on £425,000 to their family, which is a wonderful thing to do. So I think this is a terrific change, and I really believe it's going to help people to pass wealth down through the generations.
So that's Michael Gould, a partner at Highwood, based in Watford. Vicky, pensions used to be something I stuck in the fourth drawer down, and got once a year, if that, and just forgot about. And I don't think we can afford to forget about pensions now, can we?
No, we definitely can't. And as we're living longer and we all want to retire earlier, it's even more important. And I mean, once again, I hate to sound a bit smug, but one of the things that I did as I was going along was, I always put, as I got a pay rise or I got a bonus, I always whacked a bit more in, because what I know is that I'm always going to spend right up to the limit and a bit over. But if it's not there, then you can't. And that's really what you sort of need to be doing. But there's no point in starting to think about it when you're 50. You've got to be starting to think about it a bit earlier. Yeah. So it's a bit difficult. But I mean, what I would do is recommend that everybody goes and seeks some help, because try to plough through it yourself. It's really, really complicated. It's boring as hell. And actually, these guys really know what they're doing. So that would be what I would recommend. Go and see somebody. And get them to help you. Okay, good stuff. What about employers? Is there any duty of care to their employees in terms of giving the advice or information of what to do with their precious pension fund? I spoke to Michael again, and I suppose there are two yardsticks. Is there a legal obligation, and is there a moral obligation?
There is a legal obligation on employers to provide a workplace pension, and that's, as I said, is rolling out over the period of a number of years, ending in 2018, and that will have both an employer and an employee contribution being paid into it. But there's no further obligation on the employers to educate or make their employees aware of the changes that are coming into place now. However, what we are finding is that a lot of company directors and senior managers are contacting my firm, Highwood Financial Services, to ask for advice on these pensions, because they are aware of the changes that are available and they want to make sure that they're making good decisions. So we've had a lot of new inquiries from senior directors to the firm in this regard. But in terms of obligation to staff, the employer, other than fulfilling their role in regard to auto-enrolment, there's no obligation on them at this time.
Right. And in terms of those who are getting in contact with you, I mean, I imagine that it's probably time well spent on the point of view of some of those employers, because actually, if you've got an employee perhaps who doesn't take such wise decisions with their pension pot, then it's the sort of thing, financial problems are the sorts of things that can come back to bite the employer in some ways, in terms of, how the employee then performs at work if they've got financial worries, for example.
I agree. I think education on the matter is vital. I actually created a series of seminars for companies educating employees on financial planning generally, including pensions, and that was a very successful series of seminars. And I find that generally, the more education someone has and the better they are aware of their options, then the better the decision decisions they make. And I think it's in the interest of employers to be aware of the questions that employees are going to have at this time, but they must be careful that they don't give the advice because they're not authorised to do so. So I strongly recommend that if you've got any employers, they should consider speaking to their advisors, or of course we'd be happy to hear from them if they are looking for someone to guide them on what they should be saying or shouldn't be saying, as important as that is.
Okay, and what would you say to somebody who perhaps is almost overwhelmed by the fact that these things are going to change? Perhaps, and I wonder whether some of the people who said that they were aware of these changes but perhaps hadn't sort of done anything about it. What happens to people who don't do anything at this stage? I mean, is there any cost to them for actually sort of just sitting there and thinking about it for a little while?
No, I'm a strong believer that you should never rush a decision. Because the legislation is coming into place, it doesn't mean you have to make a decision the day it comes in. But I don't think anyone should rush. What they should do is they should get a meeting with an independent financial advisor, not somebody who's there to promote the products of their bank or insurance company. They should speak to somebody who's independent. And they should see more than one firm if they feel they need to. And they should gather as much information so that they can educate themselves before they make any decisions. There's no need to rush. You've got years ahead of you, but people should be planning, because if they don't plan, then they won't have a successful outcome. So I strongly recommend that people should start thinking about it, even if they're not ready to yet make a decision.
When you're at parties, for example, and you explain to people what it is that you do, maybe if we went back sort of 5 years ago, I mean, did people... Yeah, do people react to you differently now if you're saying that, you know, you advise on pensions amongst other things? I mean, there's been big change. Are people much more engaged and interested in the subject of pensions? Because there was a time when pensions documents used to be the thing that went in the bottom drawer somewhere in the spare room.
I mean, I think the first thing is you have to be invited to the party.
Yes.
Let's assume that I was one of the lucky people who got invited. But what we have seen is a significant increase, both in terms of people contacting my firm at Highwood or speaking to us in terms of introductions from other professional partners that we work with. And they do want to know a lot more. People are much more engaged than they have been at any time in the last 5 or 10 years. And they're keen to understand what their options are because they don't want to make a mistake. And that's why people need to get advice. And they go to their professional advisors to get that.
Okay, great. And if people do want to get in contact with you at Highwood, is there a website or a phone number they could get hold of you on?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. The website is highwood.co.uk and the telephone number is 01923 479 850. The offices are based in Watford. We are in the old Victorian Hospital building. We bought it at the end of 2007 in Vicarage Road.
And there he goes, Michael Gould, a partner at Highwood. Great explanation about pensions and why employers should be so interested in it. Vicky, we're rapidly running out of time. What have you learnt about finance?
I think the biggest important thing is to go and seek specialist advice. There's some fantastic people out there who really know their stuff. Go and ask them and talk. And as he said, seek some different opinions. Don't try and do it all yourself.
Okay, that's great. And so thanks to everyone involved in tonight's show. Some of the said experts. We've had Mike Hayes from Kingston Smith, who's guided us through that maze of measures and reforms, many of which actually we found out did get through from the budget, so watch out for those. And then from the short term of budgets and elections, we've also been talking to the long term about the long-term pensions reform. We've been talking to Michael Gould, a partner at Highwood, about pensions. The show's been all about the money, and I hope you all feel better for it, metaphorically if not financially. So from Vicky Scott and myself, it's goodbye.
The Business, sponsored by Kingston Smith Chartered Accountants.